Our view of the universe and the natural world changes completely when we realize that we are part of this long process of evolution. In light of the fact that all living beings are linked by a common origin, we can understand nature as a great tree of life. Nature is not random. It is a slow and deliberate process. It is truly astonishing that the simplest living organisms can give rise to such great diversity over time. It is not the strongest or the smartest who survive, but those most capable of adapting to change. We must, however, acknowledge, as it seems to me, that we are not the final result of a long process of development. We are still on the march, and there is still much to discover. There is grandeur in this view of life with its several powers, having been originally breathed into a few forms or into one, and that whilst this planet has gone cycling on according to the fixed law of gravity, from so simple a beginning, endless forms most beautiful and most wonderful have been and are being evolved. The love for all living creatures is the most noble attribute of man. I am not apt to follow blindly the lead of other men. The mystery of the beginning of all things is insoluble by us, and I, for one, must be content to remain an agnostic. Natural history is a mirror of the human mind, revealing both its strengths and weaknesses. The immense diversity of living organisms is the ultimate result of millions of small factors interacting over time and space. If I have been able to present only one idea about the evolution of life, this would be my greatest achievement. I first realized that living organisms change over time due to environmental conditions, and this change is not random. I believe that if there is any explanation for the history of the world, the theory of natural selection is the most fitting. When you reflect on the wonders of nature, one cannot help but acknowledge the grandeur of the evolutionary process. My experience with natural selection has been a journey from mental turmoil to certainty. Despite ongoing doubts, small changes occurring over time can lead to enormous shifts across generations. Small changes occurring over time can lead to enormous shifts across generations. One cannot understand nature without grasping the idea of evolution, which represents the deep unity of life. If there is one idea that can explain the immense diversity of life, it is undoubtedly natural selection. Nature evolves gradually, and each species appears as a result of an ongoing process of change and selection. I believe nature follows fixed laws, and it does not operate randomly, but is guided by environmental forces. If every species can adapt to its environment, this provides clues as to how the strongest species survive. Humans are not separate from the natural world. We are part of a vast, complex process of change and evolution. When you reflect on the wonders of nature, one cannot help but acknowledge the grandeur of the evolutionary process. Natural selection does not aim to produce the most complex or advanced beings, but rather those best suited for survival. The theory of evolution dot is a new idea that dot opens up a broader and deeper understanding of life. The Earth may be just a small place in the dot universe, but everything here points to a grand evolutionary idea. We all share a common origin, meaning that not all living beings are deeply connected by genetic links. Nature evolved gradually, and each species appears as a result of an ongoing process of change and selection. Each species of living organisms is a link in an evolutionary chain, and each link adapts to its specific circumstances. Survival is not a matter of chance, but a result of how organisms adapt to environmental challenges. Evolution does not happen in isolation from the environment. It is a direct result of how organisms interact with their surroundings. The main idea I want to emphasize is that all living beings are not static, but change over time. Natural selection operates over time and can deeply affect living organisms without having a final purpose or end goal. Evolution does not mean that living organisms are becoming more perfect. It is simply a process of adapting to changing conditions. The great variety of life forms is the result of tiny changes occurring in each generation, and these changes accumulate to produce tremendous diversity. It is not important to understand how life began, but rather how it evolved. Evolution is not a process that can be easily understood, but it is scientific, real, and relies on careful observation of changes across generations. If you look at the different living organisms, see that natural selection is the key force shaping the diversity of life. The history of life on Earth is shaped by the continuous interaction between living organisms and their environments. The diversity of life is a direct result of the environment's influence on organisms through the gradual process of natural selection. Natural selection is the force that drives the evolution of species, but it does not aim to create more complex or advanced beings. Evolution is a gradual process, and it is difficult to perceive the changes immediately, but they over time. Every living being is a link in the evolutionary chain, and every link to adapt to its environment over time. The diversity of life on Earth is the result of natural selection, operating over vast periods of time. The theory I developed on evolution through natural selection is not just a scientific idea, but a worldview that explains all biological existence. The changes in living organisms due to natural selection may be very gradual, but they can lead to significant transformations over time. When we understand evolution, we realize that life on Earth is the result of a vast, complex process that began billions of years ago. Evolution does not mean that species are heading towards perfection, but rather that they are adjusting their environments